All right, everybody. I just could not wait on Jimmy Stein anymore. Feel like my whole life is waiting on Jimmy Stein. And before that, my whole life was waiting on Mark Sears. And now Mark Sears, at least he answers the call.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this emergency podcast of Locked On Bama, where Mark Sears is returning to the university. And my God, look, we would have done this sooner. Jimmy was out of town today. We knew the news was coming today, but we thought maybe it'd be one of those late night things, and then we'd talk about it in the morning. But I'm so excited. I was actually playing basketball over at Lifetime when the news came through, and it just reverberated through all the fans. I mean, and they were like Alabama fans there, Clemson fans, Auburn fans. They were like, wow, that's big news. And it is, as a matter of fact. And when Jimmy joins, I'll talk to him about this. CBSSports.com has already moved Alabama up 7 spots to number 2 in their preseason poll. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, they should be number 1, and maybe they should. I could certainly make that argument. CBS is going to have Kansas number 1, and I certainly get that too. But look, just being in the conversation is something incredible. And we all need to take a moment and just enjoy what Nate Oates is doing. He is putting together a world-class program. He just has it together. He has all the pieces now to make something really big happen. He made something really big happen last year, and it was incredible. And I loved every minute of it. The only thing that worries me is the expectations. And I'm hoping that we as fans can at least, understand that even though this team is absolutely loaded for bear, there's going to be a fine. God, I'm sorry. I took a shower recently and my hair is all kind of wonky, but there's going to be finding the chemistry of this team. There's going to be some moments where it may take a second to get everything the way it needs to be. When you have this many guys who are so dynamic, who can score, who can make plays. Jarin Stevenson, we 100% believe, will announce he's going to be back. He may announce it while we're doing this. Excuse me. I don't know what happened just there. But, having Jarin Stevenson is going to make things even that much better. But there's only one basketball, and there's going to be a lot of guys who are going to expect to score a lot of points or at least get a lot of minutes with opportunity to score a lot of points. So, all that being said, what a problem to have, right? It's such a better problem than saying, hey, we got to go out there with 3 stars, 2 walk-ons, and a dude that transferred from Briarwood Christian. No offense to Briarwood Christian, but that's a high school. So I just think it's an amazing day for Alabama. Can't wait for Jimmy to join and get his 2 cents on this. We shouldn't be so surprised. I mean, if you've been listening to our podcast, Jimmy and I have been saying he's coming back. Now, we couldn't guarantee it, but we felt very, very, very good about it. And it was just a matter of time, and feel the same way about Jarin Stevenson. So hopefully everybody is as ecstatic as I am. Got 35 people in the pod right now. Appreciate everybody joining. Be sure, please, to subscribe to the podcast, and we would appreciate that. So I already mentioned CBS has moved us up to number 2. I can't wait to see what ESPN is going to do. They may come out with a new top 25 any day now. I mean, it's summertime for them, and so when something this big happens, they probably will update their bracketology. They'll update their top 25. I think Jimmy and I put this out there. Would you be more surprised this year if Alabama won the national championship in basketball, their national championship in football? I think I'd be probably more surprised if they won it in football this year, because I really believe I would stack this team we have next year against anybody. And the thing is, we're going to get to do that. There are going to be so many great teams. Look, I talked about the CBS poll, right? Well, Kansas, they have number 1. Weirdly, Rylan Griffin went there. Bama 2, Houston 3. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have it in front of me, but Houston's going to be in that Las Vegas tournament, so we could have a shot at playing them again. They have North Carolina, UConn, Iowa State. I'm not sure if any of those are anywhere in our vicinity in terms of where we'd play them in any kind of tournament. Baylor, Gonzaga, Duke, and then, of course, Auburn. Now, we'll play them twice. Texas A&M, I think we only play them once next year, but they're number 11. Purdue is number 12. We'll, of course, play them in Purdue this upcoming year. Tennessee is 13. I believe we only play Tennessee once this upcoming year. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Arkansas, I think we only play them once. They're number 15. Arizona, we were supposed to play them, but that got shoveled around, as we all know. Marquette, Indiana, UCLA. Creighton, of course, will come to Tuscaloosa. Florida, I know we play them. I'm not sure how many times. Texas, I know we only play them once. Rutgers is 23. I believe they will be out in that tournament in Vegas. And then Xavier, Cincinnati, and Providence. So I really feel like this schedule Alabama's putting together is just going to be awesome. So that's the thing. This could literally be the best lineup we've ever had, the best roster up and down. But it's going to be one of the toughest schedules we've ever played too. Now, there'll be somebody who tells me, the 82 team played a harder schedule or whatever. But I'm telling you, this schedule that we've got coming up, especially when you consider the SEC expansion and the two teams they're bringing in, they're not bringing in two dump trucks in basketball. They're bringing in two pretty good programs. So it's going to be heck. And here's the other thing. After this year, I think that as I'm going to have to move because my dog's going nuts. And because my wife just came home. I can't do anything about that. I'm really sorry. I didn't think she was going to be coming home right now, and she's coming home. And my yap dog is still going nuts. There's nothing I can do about that. So y'all bear with me as I go upstairs. And hopefully Jimmy will be joining me any second too. This is quality podcastmanship, I know, and I'm really sorry about that. But just really excited about this year. And now I got to set the whole dang thing up because my dog's a Nimrod. Okay. So now I'm going to take a break here for a second. And when we come back, hopefully Jimmy will be joining us. I muted myself when it's only me. Did anybody here see that? It's one of the dumbest things I've done. Jimmy's been absolutely no help. As I'm going to read some of these comments, though. It's good Bama's playing Purdue. They need to schedule a home and home against UConn. That comes from Jonathan McMillan. Look, I'm for that, but not for this year. By the way, that Caravan kid is coming back for UConn. That's also just been announced. And and yes, I am a little out of breath from just walking up the steps. I'll tell you, the thing about as Serrata Vlog says, mute. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. But the thing about playing, what I was going to say was I saw Dick Vitale had a tweet about Caravan coming back for UConn and how big a deal it is. And it is a big deal. I don't want to discount that. I think he's a great player. At the same time, there's been no peep from Vitale about Mark Sears coming back. And I would think a guy like Vitale, who is so pro college basketball, would absolutely adore the fact that Mark Sears is going to return and give the college basketball world another year of himself. I think that is pretty awesome. And anyway, it's a little disappointing that I understand UConn is the national champ, but we were in the Final Four. It's not like we're chopped liver. And also, Mark Sears returning does make Alabama a viable national championship contender. So a couple more comments. Best team Alabama basketball we've ever had next year. We'll see. I mean, of course we'll see. But, I mean, I would stack the roster up against just any other team. Right now, for me, I mean, I guess you would always say 76, the team that probably, if they had not gone up against Indiana in the Sweet 16, which I think at the time there was only 32 teams in the tournament. So Sweet 16 wasn't really the same thing. But if Alabama had played them in Sweet 16, they probably would have met them in the national championship game. that team was awesome. I've always loved the 87 team with Derek McKee and Gottfried and Farmer and Ansley and JJ Jackson, Connor. I mean, I love that squad. So I would probably put them up there against anybody. But as Jimmy Stein, the Jimmy Stein, joins us now, and I want to
have arrived.
Come on here, Jimmy. How's it going?
Well, a little traffic snafu. Apologize for the traffic snafu out there on the interstate, just short of Tuscaloosa. Very excited about Mark Sears. Let me guess, you've been talking about Mark Sears?
Well, actually, I was just telling the people about my life up to this point, and luckily you came right at the right time. I
pretty much, like Homer Simpson said once, I apologize for pretty much the entire marriage up to this point.
Yeah, there's
that's
nothing
what you're doing.
I don't apologize for. But yeah, what I was telling them was that CBS already has Alabama moved up to number 2. CBS, I won't give CBS a ton of credit. They are the best at when something like this happens. Mm-hmm. They act on it, like they get an article out almost immediately.
Right.
Like,
did they have Kansas number 1? Or
yeah, Kansas still number 1. And I mean, let's look at that for a second. I've already gone down in Alabama's arduous schedule, so no real sense in going over that. Just because you're late. But Hunter Dickinson is back. I mean, God knows people are going to say somebody. I'll tell you, this is true for those listening. I'm not trying to name drop here, but Al Dillard, you remember, who played at Arkansas, who could shoot it from the hog's nose. Well, I went to play basketball tonight at Lifetime. I only meant to play for like a game or two, and I happened to get on a team with a guy who actually played football at Clemson from like 16 to 19 or something like that, and another guy who could shoot it from anywhere. And I mean, we kept winning, so I kept playing. But Al Dillard was one of the guys we played against. And when the news comes out about Sears, he's like, how is he not graduated? I said, well, this is the only good thing about COVID, really. I mean, is that all these people got next year? He said, man, if I could have had an extra year, he said, I'd have so many records. And I mean, I don't think he's being cocky. I think he's right. But then we got off on the thing. This is apropos of nothing. We got off on the thing about NIL, and he was like, man, yeah. He said, this is kind of wonky. I said, well, you do know they're going to go back and retroactively pay some people, but only up to 2016. And he looked at me like, you didn't really even have to tell me that. I wish you had not told me that, because Al Dillard probably would have done pretty well in an NIL era, I think.
Oh, no doubt.
Regardless. Yeah, he was like, yeah, Sears is a dude. And everybody's pretty fired up about it. And I mean, it's huge news. What I was telling him too, Jimmy, is Tim Green says Hunter Renfrow played for 8 years. That much is true too. By the way, the guy that I played basketball with tonight that actually played football at Clemson, I just said, boy, so you played with Hunter Renfrow? Because this guy was also a walk-on. And he was like, yeah, he's a good buddy of mine. And he said, I said, well, who's he with? He hadn't signed with anybody. And he said, yeah, he's not signed with anybody. And, he may end up retiring and may just end up going into coaching or something. And I mean, I was like, this guy is literally trying to replace his invasion of the body snatchers. He's going to take Dabo Sweeney's whole life over. He's a walk-on.
He was a better player than Dabo. Dabo was a decent player, but Hunter Renfrow is a better player.
Yeah.
You know what stands out to me about Mark coming back? My first thought when Mark came back is, tell me I'm going to be missing someone here, but the fifth-year guys on the team, fifth-year guys. In college basketball, when you're an elite program, for years they said, well, if you're an elite program, you're like Kentucky, right? You have nothing but freshmen and maybe a couple of sophomores because everybody else is gone. Look at the fifth-year seniors, not just seniors, fifth-year seniors Alabama has on the team next season. Mark Sears, Latrell Wrightsell, Grant Nelson, Cliff Omori. That's 4. I think there's another one.
The kid from
is it Youngblood?
Youngblood?
Youngblood. It's a 5th year for Youngblood, right?
I believe he is.
Either Youngblood's a 5th-year guy or Mallet is a 5th-year guy. It must be Youngblood. Does Mallet have 2 years?
I don't think it's Mallet.
Okay. So, I think there's 5 5th-year great players, not just good, great players, great college players. Now, they're 5th-year players. Let's also be honest about this, Luke. They're 5th-year players because the NBA has passed on them 4 times each.
But that's okay.
Right? Yeah, well, that is okay. That's okay. I'm just saying it's incredible that Alabama's got 5 fifth-year players, and all that matters to us at Alabama is how good they are at college basketball. That's all that should matter to us. But let's not, when people say, oh, this is the greatest starting 5 of all time. Well, the NBA's passed on these guys so that they're not Brandon Miller, who they didn't pass on at all, or Noah Clowney that didn't pass on at all. So that's also interesting. It's a great team of college basketball players. And I think almost all these guys will play in the NBA, Luke. But I think that's a great question. Those 5 fifth-year players, will any of them be first-round picks? I don't know that any of them will be. But I kind of think all of them will be in NBA camps, if that makes sense. So, heck, maybe some of the second-team guys are better NBA prospects because now the second team, and this is fun. I don't want to be hogging up. I know you've been talking for 10 minutes, but how about this? If a starting 5 is like Sears, Reitzel, Youngblood, Nelson, Omori, if that's your starting 5, then a second 5 might be Holloway, Mallett, Reed, Stevenson, and Sherrill. That's your second team. That team could win the SEC. I'm serious. That second team, Holloway, Mallett, Reed, Stevenson, Sherrill. That's a really good 5-some right there. And that's your second team. By the way, I just put Philon, Mo Diabate, and Cunningham at the end of the bench. And those dudes can play. They can play. God.
I mean, but I do feel like, everybody, all the Auburn boards are going crazy, like, Holloway. I think this is fine for Holloway. I don't think this has, I think if you're Aiden Holloway, you're like, hey, I get to learn behind Mark Sears and maybe come back for one more year, and then I'm the dude. That's what I would look at it.
He should be 50% disappointed because every kid wants to play the minutes, but 50% elated because I would tell Aiden Holloway, hey, listen to this old man who's been around the block a few times. This helps you.
It helps.
You're a kid who needs to stay in college for 4 years, and now you get to learn from Mark Sears, who's as good as a college player as anyone ever gets to learn from. And then you still get to do it, 2 more years. And how's this for crazy advice that they'll never take? But like kids like Philon and Naz Cunningham that I just put at the end of the bench, Luke, now that with revenue sharing that starts next year with these basketball kids and NIL, which isn't going away, and Alston money and everything else, and you're not a premium NBA prospect, playing for 5 years in college makes a lot of sense right now. I would seriously consider going to the coach and saying, is there a chance I can redshirt? Because now you got 5 years earning what they're going to be earning in college. And with revenue sharing added on top, Luke, it's not crazy to me that basketball players at Alabama, a typical basketball player might make as much as $300,000, $400,000, or even $500,000 a year. A typical player, not Mark Sears. He's going to make, I think we all know he's going to be making closer to 7 figures. But a typical basketball player. And look, where does he think, unless you're a premium NBA prospect, where are you going to go after college and make $500,000 playing basketball?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, redshirting, and these kids won't listen. Most of them are impatient. They don't want to sit. I'm telling you, there is a major financial reason to want to redshirt. And hey, let me get 5 years of this instead of just 4. Now, I'm not saying that for Brandon Miller. That's totally different. I'm saying non-premium NBA prospects, and that might be a fair way to call Philon and Naz Cunningham, who are really good prospects. I don't know if anyone's talking about him being one and done first round picks. That's a little too much for me. I mean, I wouldn't bet on that. I can't rule it out, but I wouldn't bet on it.
Well, I'll say this too. I believe, people keep asking about Stevenson. I believe Stevenson will be back. I do.
Yeah, I'm optimistic there.
I mean, like super optimistic.
I'm optimistic.
And then that just makes things even spicier. And somebody actually mentioned, hey, Jimmy, we need a roster countdown for basketball.
There will be one for sure. And that's going to be a lot of fun to do. I'll probably just do that a little closer to basketball season starting off, because that'll be a fun way to, like I said, that lineup I just sped out there, that's without really thinking it through, and things will change over the summer, and Stevenson's not official yet. But, yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a fun way to do the roster countdown, but the same way might be the best way to project a starting five, right? Who are the 5 best players on the team this fall? But, I'll probably put Philon and Cunningham near the end because they're freshmen. And again, they're not going to listen to me, nor should they. But players that aren't definitely cruising to an NBA first-round future, I'd take 5 years playing in college once revenue sharing hits.
It is just announced that Stevenson will be back. John Rothstein just reported that. So, we knew this. And I hate not to do an emergency pod for Stevenson, but we will talk about him tomorrow when we talk more about this. We just wanted to go live because basketball deserves this. Mark Sears deserves this. So we need to Soretta Vlog says who's ranked 69 on the basketball countdown. We should have us number 69 just like out of.
Let's just say Mark Sears. Yeah. Because he deserves it all. He deserves it all.
He deserves even that.
He deserves even that.
He's like, I'll take it.
Hey, one day I think Mark Sears' jersey. How about this? Bold proclamation. Mark Sears' jersey will one day hang in the rafters in Coleman Coliseum, and that's saying a lot because, to my knowledge, the only one hanging in the rafters is Wendell Hudson. I think is the only guy with the jersey, and rightfully so. And I think Mark Sears will have a jersey hanging in the rafters. I think he's. I've said this before, but man, it's so fun to. You have great players. There's a lot of great players. I think Grant Nelson's a great player. I really do. I think Grant's great, and there's other great. We've had great players at Alabama, McDyess and a lot of others. But there's another tier, the legendary player. And we've had legendary basketball players in my mind. Brandon Miller, to me, is legendary. But what's super cool, Luke, is when you have a legendary player that's still playing.
Yeah,
he's a legend, and he's still playing here. That is so rare in college sports, where these kids are in such a rush to go play pro basketball and pro football and take off and do all this stuff. But Mark Sears, we have an Alabama legend that will still be playing a full year of basketball. And that's Montana Fouts, I think, is a good example of that. Her final year at Alabama. She's a legendary softball player, maybe Miss Softball in the history of Alabama's program. We got to watch her play a whole senior season wearing that crown. And now we'll get to see that same thing with Mark Sears. It's the same we saw with Bryce Young too. I think his final year at Alabama, because he'd already won a Heisman.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight for this emergency podcast. But we'll be back tomorrow with an actual podcast. So until then, roll tide, everybody, and roll Mark Sears.
Roll tide.